welcome back to another episode of Everyday Bubbly with Taylor and Allegra. We are here for another episode, back in action again. I'm enjoying these ones that we are back together in person because we've been traveling a lot.
I know, it feels like we've been away from one another for like moons, and it's been like 2 weeks, I think.
I'm like, I have separation anxiety.
Honestly, same. I was like, I feel like we've been apart from one another for like a month. Maybe it's because we're recording this, what is today? Honestly, the 10th, 11th?
The 10th.
The 10th, and I'm leaving on the 15th for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So like, we have like such a brief time.
It's gonna come out this week, and then you're leaving, and then...
This comes out when I'm gone.
Tough.
And then I'll be gone again.
You're right,
Yeah.
It does. So we are on a weekend.
We are on a weekend. So it's nice to be back. I mean, this spring has been so busy, I think, for both of us.
Yeah, with social stuff and with work and with
life.
Weddings and life and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna be slowing down a little bit more once we get to June, which feels weird. I know that this is not what's
a month away.
I know.
Ooh.
But also, how is it all? I was journaling about this earlier today. Like, how is it already
June.
May 10th? And like June is next week.
I'm gonna blink and June is tomorrow.
Like, how is that even a thing?
And then July is in like 2 weeks.
How?
And then December is in like
and then it's
a month.
next year.
Shook.
No.
No.
You know what? I'm living in the moment. I'm living in the present. We are here. We are drinking wine.
What does it say? Ye crawl.
Ye crawl.
Still the best piece of merch we've ever done.
Truly.
Thank you.
We are drinking today a wine from our good friends at Une Femme. You guys know we love Une Femme. Love a female-focused, female-run wine organization. This is the Cali. It is a sparkling rosé wine. So if you're looking for a rosé for your, I don't know, this is like baby shower season, bridal shower season. I think this would be a good option.
It's a good like sparkling mix, and like a lot of people do, you know, a champagne or a Prosecco. And if you want to mix in a sparkling rosé, I would check out Une Femme.
Yeah, and honestly,
we love their other regular
Betty.
Sparkling too. The Betty.
The Betty is honestly one of my favorite sparkling whites I've ever had.
This is a fun mix too.
Yeah,
sparkling
it's nice
rosé.
to throw it in. I love a good rosé. Yeah, that's what we're drinking. What are we cheersing to?
What are we cheersing to?
I'll go first. Yeah. I'm cheersing to. My cheers is so basic and boring, but I'm cheersing to us being back together. It's always nice to record in person.
I know. I would agree with that. I feel like, can I make that my cheers too?
That can be both of our cheers. There's no rules here.
No, I think my that is my cheers, honestly, because it has been so long. We're getting our good friend hang time today, getting to catch up, catching up on like TikToks and trends and everything together.
Do you guys do this with your friends? Maybe this is just us, but we'll sit down and be like, okay, show me the last 3 TikToks you liked. Show me the first TikTok that pops up.
Yeah, because we're on completely different TikToks.
Have you guys heard, I'm looking for a guy in finance, trust fund, blue eyes. Like, Allie had never heard of such a, like, that's all my TikTok
it's gonna be all over my TikTok now, moving forward.
And the other thing is, like, you didn't know about the boxer trend.
I didn't.
Wild to me.
Still don't.
Still don't get it. That's
wild.
Okay.
My cheers of the week.
Well, you just got back from this amazing trip.
I know. My cheers of the week is probably Disneyland. Like, let's be real.
Guys, remember her cheers of the week 2 weeks ago was, I'm going to Disneyland.
And then this is it. I actually don't think I can go an episode without talking about Disney.
I don't think you can.
I think we should like keep track.
Done.
Failing. Nothing can stop us. That was Disneyland, and Disney California Adventure was so cool. The Incredicoaster, go check it out if you like roller coasters. We didn't have the cool coasters like Tron or Guardians of the Galaxy Rewind. Those are just for Disney World.
Oh.
But we had the Incredicoaster, we had the Guardians of the Galaxy drop ride, which is like the old Tower of Terror ride, and a couple other really fun ones.
I asked you this when you first got here, but like, how would you compare the two? Because I think it's cool that you are so new to both parks, like Land and Worlds. So how would you compare Land versus World? For all of our other, I don't know if any of you guys out there are also Disney adults, like Allegra here, but
You know, I liked Disney World more. I think that there was more to do. You can like drink and walk around the park, and I was with my best friend. I mean, and my boyfriend. I mean, that was just like so amazing for me. And this one was really fun too. I still had an amazing time. We only did one day. We got there at 9 a.m. We left at 10 p.m. And we did 20 rides. I think I sent you the stats. Like we walked like almost 12 miles, walked like 27,000 steps. We did it all. I also love the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland.
Oh yeah, I really want to do that.
Because it reminded me of the dinosaur ride in
World
Animal Kingdom. But it was, I mean, there was like a fake Indy, and I'm like, oh my God, Harrison Ford, hi. Oh my gosh, this poor sweet girl who was like maybe like 8 was in the row in front of us. Like, we got off the ride and she was like sobbing, and her parents were like trying to comfort her because it was like too scary for her. So like, I mean, caution, beware.
Me after I did Tower of Terror in Disneyland Paris. So.
I mean, and the Indiana Jones ride, you're going through the Temple of the Forbidden Eye, and like there's like shit popping out at you, and it's very rocky. And Adam and I were just like laughing our butts off, and we're just like, this is amazing. And then we get off, and this poor girl is like sobbing. But we did a lot of really cool things. I think top picks, Hyperspace Mountain, which is like Space Mountain, but like Star Wars themed. Yeah, I mean, the Guardians ride. We did the Toy Story one again.
Which one's the Toy Story?
The Midway Mania.
Oh, that one's really fun.
The shooting one, and we killed it.
Fun.
We did it so much better. So
I love that.
That's cheers.
Cheers.
I got new ears.
New ears. I think that's, again, sorry you guys if you're not Disney adults. I personally am not a Disney adult. I'm an adult who has been to Disney, which is different. But I love collecting things when I go anywhere. Like I used to collect Hard Rock glasses, I collect magnets, but I really like getting ears when I go to Disney. So it's cool that you've also
I know. It was like hard to not like get more than one pair. But I was only there for a day. So
yeah, you only needed one for the literal day that you were there. So those are our cheers. I want to cheers to being together. Allie's cheersing to being a Disney adult, and we're just happy to be back in action.
I know.
And this week, we're going to talk about one of, honestly, my favorite topics. Honestly, one of your favorite topics, too. I could talk about this topic
I could, too.
ad nauseum. But I won't.
Could, too.
I will keep myself short.
We're going to rein it in.
We're going to rein it in. Books. Books. Glorious books.
Books. The thing that keeps us sustained.
Yeah.
Truly.
We're going to talk all about some of our favorite books, how we find time for reading. I mean, I think, honestly, that is my biggest personality trait. When people think about Taylor, they think about somebody who reads a lot. I probably read 75 to 100 books a year. I think you're probably on track to
I think I'm on track for that this year. But that's like new-ish for me. I used to love reading as a kid. My mom used to tell this story about how she'd be taking us to these events at the Frank Irwin Center. My sister and I would just have like our heads like in a book, and she'd be trying to introduce us to like well-known people in the Austin community, and she'd be like, girls, put your books down. Like, so I was an avid reader as a kid, and then I think I kind of dropped off a little bit because you have to just like get spurred back into it and like refine the passion for it. But now I'm like, oh yeah, anytime, downtime.
Yeah, I think that's the same for me. I mean, I will say I don't think I ever waned. I definitely was that kid who was like, Mom, can I bring a book to the restaurant when we went out to dinner? Like I'd be in the corner reading my book, and like that was always.
I want my future kids to do that.
Yeah, honestly, same. Yeah. My parents just like made it so much a priority. I don't think that unlike you, I don't think my love of reading ever really waned. It's very much been a constant for me. I think there's other things in my life that have like come and gone. But books have always been very much constant for me. And same way, like if there is free time, I'm more likely to read a book than I am to scroll Instagram.
That's truly good. Yeah, I am that same way now. I actually, the thing on my phone that said like how much you're on your phone, it's like, you are way down. I'm like, that's pretty much, that's it.
Yeah. So let's just dive right in. Like, what are some of your favorite genres? I think that you and I have some overlap, but we're also very different in terms of what we read.
So I would say like top 3 or 4 that come to mind is the fantasy genre. I also love, I'm going to count fantasy as one.
Okay.
I'm going to count romantasy as a second one.
So not, what's it, romantasy?
It's a fantasy with a romance element.
Okay.
So, because there's a difference between the two.
Okay.
And then I would say the third is probably like your thriller genre.
Mm-hmm.
And then my fourth is probably, it's probably like an up in the air between like, I don't know, does murder mystery count as thriller?
I would count that as a thriller.
Yeah,
but
I would actually think it's like probably a subgenre. But then I also love sci-fi.
That's 5 genres.
Those are my top 5.
Those are all the genres.
Those are my top 5.
Yeah, I don't even know what my top. I read a little bit of everything. I don't really like.
You do.
I don't read romance. I don't like really romance books. I'm more of I like fantasy, maybe more old school fantasy. Like I don't read ACOTAR. I know is the big thing right now. You read that, and
but I would say that's not fantasy. That's like the romantasy category.
Okay. Yeah.
Fantasy to me is like Lord of the Rings.
So I hate Lord of the Rings with a fiery passion, but I love
and Wheel of Time.
I love Wheel of Time.
Yeah.
We'll read all 14 of those books again. They're thick boys.
Game of Thrones,
Harry Potter, like those sort of fantasy.
Yeah.
I'm very much into.
Those to me are all in the fantasy genre, or the romantasy is like the ACOTAR. The
like
Sarah J.
Fourth
Maas
Wings
category.
Things.
Yeah,
Exactly. I've never read any of those. Yeah. So fantasy is a really big one. For me, honestly, recently, I wasn't always a huge fantasy girl. I do love sci-fi, like Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that sort of stuff. Love a thriller, and I love horror.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I feel like I started with thriller and then I've moved to horror, and there's a lot of overlap between the two. I think the only difference is horror tends to be more supernatural, whereas thriller is more of a somebody did it, like a human did this.
Yeah, like a true crime, who did it. Yeah.
And how
do you feel about like historical fiction?
I like historical fiction.
Yeah, I feel like I've read some. It's not like in my top 5, obviously, but there's some books I've read. It just takes me a little bit longer to like get into it. And then there's also like nonfiction, which like that's all that Adam reads. But for me, it's like
nonfiction. It depends. I'm reading a book.
Nonfiction is tough for me.
It depends on what the topic is. I'm not a biography memoir girl. I don't like those. I don't really. This sounds weird, but I don't get poetry. I don't get poetry. But I read a history of Bring It On, which is technically nonfiction. I'm reading this book called Body Keeps a Score, which is about how your body like processes trauma and like the impacts that it has on you. I read books about yoga, Ayurveda, like a lot of different things.
I guess there's like a time and a place for it. It's not like what I gravitate towards, but I did read that one, Fire Cannot Kill a Dragon, which is like the making of Game of Thrones, which was really cool. That one was really good. That's nonfiction. And then
I think
Diary of Anne Frank. Like I like that one. Read that one. Matthew McConaughey's book, Green Lights.
I've heard great things about
this
book.
But Prince Harry's horrible, terrible, awful.
Oh, what's it? Spare. Honestly, that makes me think of Harry Potter with kill the spare.
Yeah, exactly. And you would think it'd be so good, but he's not a good writer.
You know that's ghostwritten. That's ghostwritten, right?
No, it's literally like...
He wrote that?
I feel like it's literally his writing because it's so elementary. So
that's sad for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm not a big memoir girl, but like, I mean, I think the thing, going back to what you were saying about like, you're not really a nonfiction girl, but you've read all of these different things.
Yeah.
I think nonfiction tends to get lumped into one category.
Yeah.
And there's so much.
I mean, Adam's always reading books about like finance and marketing, and like he does read a lot of books that like his celebrity idols like write and stuff like that.
Who are his celebrity idols?
Oh gosh, I don't even know that. He's told me. They're just like people that are big in like
finance.
Make your own wealth world.
Gotcha.
And like make your best life world.
Gotcha. I mean, I love a self-improvement book.
Tim Robbins sort of style.
Gotcha.
Maybe not that exact person.
Yeah, I know that a lot of the influencers and like people, I follow a lot of people in the like self-help, self-improvement space on Insta, and they love Tim Robbins. Yeah. So like I get it.
But or also like Dave Ramsey, like Dave make Ramsey, your own money.
I gotta talk. There are better people than Dave Ramsey.
Well, I'm just assuming that. I don't know who Adam listens to. I'm just like assuming things. But he listens to people like Dave Ramsey who are like, here's how to build your wealth. Here's how to build your marketing. Don't quote me on that. Adam's going to hear this and be like, what the fuck? I don't listen to Dave Ramsey.
We're putting that out. I'm putting that out there right now. I'm going to tell, I'm like, I heard that you listen to Dave Ramsey.
And there's so many better people out there, and he's going to be like, I hate Dave Ramsey. So don't quote me on that.
Yeah, there's so, that's the cool thing though. It's like there's so many types of books and authors and just people in
things out there.
Yeah. Just like how there's so many different shows out there for different people. Like some people love reality TV and some people love documentaries. Like that's the same thing that's true of books. And I think one thing I get asked a lot at work, because I'm very lucky, and then one of the perks I have at work is used to be unlimited book orders. We've like reined it in to like $100 a month of like books from whatever source you want to purchase them from. But people are like, how do you read that many books? Like that you're reading $100 worth of books a month? And I'm sure you get similar questions.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like that is my priority. Like I was saying, I tend to read more than I tend to scroll. If you have time, you would be shocked at how much time people spend scrolling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also, like, since I've started reading more, you might have, I don't know if you've noticed this about me, but I've noticed this about me. I like don't watch TV anymore because in my downtime, I read.
Oh, I love that.
Like Adam will like put on like a YouTube video or something, and I'll just be like sitting in bed, like reading while he's watching that. But I can't tell you the last like TV show that I watched.
I could tell you because we watched a few episodes together.
Of Five Ever. Girls Five Ever. Yeah, that was probably the last thing I watched.
That's not a bad thing.
I watched the movie, The Idea of You, because everyone kept texting me like, oh my gosh, have you seen this? You would like it. It's based on Harry Styles.
Is it?
Ish. Yeah, like the author wrote this like fanfic about an older woman, like falling for this young British pop star, and it was like kind of based around Harry Styles. So multiple people texted me about it, so that's the last thing I watched. But other than that was Girls Five Ever, which was the last time we hung out.
That was moons ago.
So
wow. Yeah, I feel the same. Honestly, if it's not for Nick, I wouldn't really be a big TV watcher. We watch TV together. I'm much more of a reader. But it's so interesting that your TV viewing habits have changed so much just since you've been getting a little bit more into reading.
But I think it's also because of the series I've been reading. I'm reading a series that is 8 books, and it's a bigger conversation, which I'm sure we'll get into. But I'm near the end of it, and so I've really been heads down on like, I gotta know how this finishes.
Yeah. So what are you reading right now?
So going back to that.
I want to know, like we started, let's finish.
So I think I told you about this like the other day, but I am reading, to backtrack a little bit, I am a Sarah J. Maas girly. I know that there's like the girlies who are into it, that's ACOTAR.
What's Fourth Wing?
Fourth Wing is a different book. Different artist.
Okay. Yeah. Different artist?
Different author.
Okay, cool. Different artist, different word artist.
Creative, yes. Different creative, different author. So Sarah J. Maas has 3 different series. She has ACOTAR. She has...
For the people who don't know what ACOTAR is.
A Court of Thorns and Roses, and the books that precede it. So that's that one. That's one series. And then she has Crescent City.
Okay.
And then she has Throne of Glass. And Throne of Glass is the one that I'm reading right now. And I have read all of her books, so I'm a big Sarah J. Maas fan. The fact that someone can write... She's written like 21 books so far.
That is what
And she's not done. She's not done with 2 of those 3. Throne of Glass is done. There's like 8 books. It's done. A Court of Thorns and Roses, 5 books. I think she has 3 more planned for it.
That's
and then
wild.
Crescent City is 3 books, and I think she has 2 more planned for it. So the fact that she's done like 21 books plus some coming up.
And they're not thin boys.
No. That's the next thing I was going to say. When I read something that's under 300 pages, I'm like, this is a light read. I can read this in 24 hours.
Yeah.
Sarah J. Maas's books are like 600 to 800 pages long, and there are fat books. And I'm like, how do you have that much imagination?
Yeah, that's one thing
I want to pick her brain.
I love that some people can do that. My mom used to read a lot of Danielle Steele. I don't know if you know that author. I've never read anything, but that woman has written like 35 books. And I don't, how do you do it? I used to think that Harry Potter was crazy with 7 books.
Yeah. I haven't imagined, I could maybe, I think I've told you this. I feel like I could maybe write a book, like one book.
I could write a novella. I could write
actually, short story, 100%.
Yeah.
But like a series of multiple books, and then to have multiple series of multiple books. Granted, apparently she has some crossover, and I've seen a dash of that. I'm not going to say because it's a big spoiler, but there's a little bit of a dash of universal like world crossover, which is kind of cool. But also like there are very big like worlds that she's building in multiple books that are 800 pages long. So I just don't even, props to her.
What are some of your favorite books you've ever read? It could be series or individual books, or favorite authors.
Well, that's hard for me to answer because like my favorite book of all time is Pride and Prejudice. Like I will read that once a year, every year for the rest of my life.
I have never read Pride and Prejudice.
One time I did. Together?
I read Pride and Prejudice and Zombies one time. I don't know if you remember when there was this phase.
Oh my God! Yes, I saw the one. I did not read that.
In the early 2010s.
How dare they taint that amazing book?
In the early 2010s, there was this trend. This is for the listeners. You obviously know of adding in characters, like supernatural characters, to things.
Fucking Elizabeth Bennet killing zombies.
So there was that. In Pride and Prejudice, there was also Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters. And I read, there's Anna Karenina, but there was Android Karenina, which I also own.
Wow.
So I weirdly got really into that.
It's like sci-fi horror meets classic literature.
I'm not a huge classic literature girl, but I love sci-fi and horror.
Well, I wouldn't say I am either, but I do love Pride and Prejudice. That's probably my favorite book ever. And also in the favorite book realm, I love The Great Gatsby. I read that a bajillion times. That book about the boys that are Pony Boy.
Oh no, oh gosh, they're on the island. They're like the one where they're stranded on the island where they kill Piggy.
Not like Lord of the Flies.
Lord of the Flies.
No,
I love
not that one. No, it's about Pony Boy and Dally. And they're in the 50s.
Not Catcher. Oh, Franny and Zoe?
No. Oh my God.
I honestly don't know what you're talking about.
What is this book called?
It's not Catcher in the Rye. That's
there are people
Holden
who are going to be
Caulfield.
listening to this and be like, oh my gosh,
like,
Allegra, it is this person.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I want to Google book about the boys, but that's not going to come up anything.
Can you remember a character's
Pony
name?
Boy. Outsiders. The Outsiders.
Oh, I've never read The Outsiders.
Oh, that one hits you hard. Yeah.
Those are some of your favorites? What do you have some contemporary favorites?
But I will say, the Throne of Glass series that I'm reading right now, I would say top 10. I think there are people who associate Sarah J. Maas with the smutty kind of fantasy romance genre. And I will say ACOTAR 100% is that. But Throne of Glass, I'm on book 6, 7 of 8.
No sex?
Finally got a sex scene. For the first sex scene.
That's too long. I need sex scene at least book 2. At least.
There's been tension. There's been looks. There's been a romance in the building, but the action, the fantasy action and the world building, 10 out of 10. I would say. I think you would really like it.
This
and
is
if you don't,
Glass.
Throne of Glass.
Okay.
And if you start to read it and you hate it, just don't tell me. But I think you will because you liked Hunger Games.
I didn't love Hunger Games.
But as a whole, the way that it went, or no?
I don't like Katniss as a protagonist. I liked her more now. When I read it as an adult, I liked it a little bit better. When I read it for the first time when I was 22, I did not like Katniss as a protagonist.
What did you not like about her? I'm curious.
And honestly, I will say, maybe this is more about me than it is about Katniss herself. I think that Katniss is, and this is the point, a weak protagonist. I think that Katniss And I think this is why I appreciated it more when I was an adult, as opposed to when I was 22 and like fiery and thought that everybody like needed to have like a passion. She's such a figurehead, but she is not like a willing figurehead, and it like frustrated me how passive she tended to be.
Well, then you'll like Throne of Glass because she is like very much a reclaiming her birthright.
Okay, then I probably would like that.
Yeah,
yeah.
I think
I
you'd
liked
like it.
A Ballad of Songbird and Snake, the Hunger Games prequel, much more than I liked original Hunger Games and the movie as well.
Okay, I think that one I will say, and then the Red Rising series is the
you
one.
Talked about this recently.
The one that I've been reading too. I've actually only read the first book. I've been waiting on the wait list for the second book because we'll get into this about how we like to read, and I'm a Kindle, iPad, digital format girl. So I've read the first book of Red, but I flew through it. And it was so good. It's dystopian sci-fi.
I saw it on
really good.
Spotify audiobooks, and I did add it to my queue just in case I ever got
I will
around
say,
to that.
when you start to listen to it on Spotify, it's like very British. And I had to like really pay attention because sometimes when you hear like in a different accent, you kind of glaze over some things. And you're like, wait, what did he say? I found myself like rewinding it because I had to really listen because they just enunciate things differently.
Yeah.
So, what about you?
Some of my favorite books of all time.
Can I say two?
Yeah.
Harry Potter.
Yeah. That feels like a given.
Series of unfortunate events.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Those are the first two I was going to say.
Yep.
I think we talked about this in a previous episode. Like, those two books raised me.
Well, we talked about in the pop culture episode.
Yes, that's what it was. I love Series of Unfortunate Events. It literally is me.
What's the bad guy's name? Count Olaf?
Count Olaf. I thought that it was like, and I still think this now, this was such a mature book for kids in a good way, in that it didn't talk down to you. It like met you where you were at and like elevated you. And I cannot speak highly enough of, I thought honestly, if I had a kid, I would name it after one of the main characters of the book. Like, that's how obsessed I am with
Violet
the series.
and
So those two definitely. I do really love the world building and story that is Wheel of Time. They're long. The original author ended up dying like 11, 12 books in. So the last two books are written by a different author who's also a fantasy author.
I can't wait. I have it like on my to be read. I have the first one like rented on my
The first one was really
Kindle.
hard, I will say. It was a slog to get through. It was just so much world building that it took me a long time.
But do you think it'll help that I've seen the show? Like, will that help with the world building?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't know
I'll
because
let you know.
I'm like getting ahead of myself. I think that the show did a great job of adapting the book in season 1 and changed things, honestly, that made it better. Like, it improved upon the book, which I do not say very often. Season 2 got a little squirrely, but you haven't seen season 2.
I haven't.
Then we're good.
I've only seen season 1. So I feel like it might help with the world building enough that I know like who the characters are and the places.
Yeah, it probably would help then.
That's how I feel like about Game of Thrones. Like, watch the show and like reading the book was easier to process because I read the book.
I watched the first episode, freaked out. Years passed, yada yada yada. Read the books, then I got interested in the show. So I was a little bit different to that.
Yeah.
So those are my first 3. I love, like I said, I love horror and thrillers. So anything by Riley Sager or Grady Hendrix is very high on my list.
I've heard good things about Riley Sager.
So such good thrillers. His last one is, I don't remember the name of it. I'll post a picture of it on social. I mean, you guys, if you follow us on social, you know that I post a picture every time I've like read a book. Allie, I've told you to do that as well.
But it's harder. Mine are all Kindles, so that's like a picture of my iPad. Like,
that's fine. I don't think anybody matters. I just want to see what you're reading.
Zakatar and Throne of Glass.
What else are some of my favorites? I love A Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. That's my little sci-fi bit. I loved Fahrenheit 451. I don't know. I read, like I said, I read a little bit of everything. I'm not like monogamous is the word that came to my head, but I don't like stick with one genre.
Yeah, you're not like a strict genre reader.
Yeah.
What about like Ender's Game? That's one.
I did quite like Ender's
Game.
Game. I did try and read some of the sequels. They got a little weird.
Did you end up reading Dune? I know you got the book.
I still have not read Dune. That
Dune
is very
like
high on my list.
Heavy.
It's a thick boy.
Yeah.
It's another thick boy.
And there's like multiple books, and that's another one where I'm like, how do you have that much imagination to just write?
Yeah, there's a
like
lot.
Frank, what's his name?
Frank, could not tell you.
The author.
Could not fucking.
Mr. Frank.
Mr. Frank.
He wrote all those books.
Frank's Red Hot.
Frank's Red Hot.
But yeah, no, I read so many different things. Like I said, I love, one book I do of a nonfiction variety that I come back to often is The Four Agreements, which I had to read for the first time during yoga teacher training. And it's just the 4 agreements you need to live a happy life. It gets very repetitive, I will say. It's a very thin book. You could read it in an afternoon. But it's so simple, and that's why I love it so much. It's just a good reminder of how I personally want to live my life. And just coming back to that, that's my, I guess, Pride and Prejudice, where I try and read it annually and just have that as a reminder to myself.
I like that. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
4 Agreements.
I think I might have it on the bookshelf. I'll lend it to you if I do.
Okay.
But yeah, that's one that I come back to very often. We alluded to this just now, but how do you like to read? We like to read in very different ways.
I know. I feel like I'm going to get so much hate from people, but I do not generally read with a physical book. One, because I don't have like bookshelves and room for books. Like I have one bookshelf that I have books on, and then everything else I'm like, I don't want to buy a book, and then if I don't like it, what do you do with it? You just donate it?
So I will say, and this has only happened to me once, but I'm a physical book girl. I love going to my local independent bookstores. You guys, do not just go off of Amazon. I can rant about this for hours. Like, Amazon does not give authors the full amount that they are due. Like, they put so much time and energy into writing. So if you can afford to support your local bookstore, please do. That being said, I bought a book from my local bookstore, Book People, here in Austin. Shit, awful, worst book I've ever read. Horrendous. I'm not proud of this. I returned it. I went back to the bookstore and I was like, I'm so sorry. I cannot keep this.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, is something wrong? Like, this is a bad book. I don't want this book. I'm not going to gift this to somebody else.
Yeah, I will not put this back into the world.
I can't do it. I need you to take this book back. That being said, if you cannot afford to, or you don't want to prioritize, and that's totally fine. If you don't want to prioritize purchasing your books, or you're worried about not liking it, I love the library.
Yeah, and that's how I rent my books on my Kindle and iPad, because I use the Libby app, which is connected to the Austin Public Library. And that's actually, I don't buy books on my Kindle. I only rent them from the library. I just don't like.
I didn't know you could do that on your actual Kindle. I thought you could do it on your phone. I didn't realize you could do Libby on your Kindle.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So you might be more interested in your Kindle knowing you can rent a book.
I would be.
Yeah.
I 100% would be.
The only things I've bought in the past year have been audiobooks, because I like to dual read between reading and audiobook, especially when I'm really into a book, and especially when I'm really into a book series like Throne of Glass, because when I get to that point where all I want to do is read and I can't just read all the time, I'm like, okay, I'm going to play it on the audiobook while I'm driving. I'm going to play it on the audiobook while I'm washing dishes. I'm going to play the audiobook while I'm walking the dog around the neighborhood. Yeah. And that gets my fix. So I will buy the audiobooks on Audible, because sometimes that's the only way. You can rent audiobooks sometimes, but Throne of Glass, the wait time's 13 weeks. So,
oh, wow.
I just bought the audiobook. But,
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing that you could do.
But I also, knowing that I can rent books from the library, even I have a library card, I should just, go to the library.
I cannot speak highly enough of the Austin. Honestly, any public library these.
But Austin's is good.
Austin's is really good. But your tax-paying dollars, even if you are not a homeowner or whatever, libraries are amazing resources, and I wish more people use them. I think that they're fantastic. But the Austin Public Library, I would get married there. The Central Downtown Library is the most stunning, gorgeous building in the entire universe. It's beautiful.
It's so
but
gorgeous.
I truly did not know that I could get Libby to, because the only time I use my Kindle is when I'm traveling, because it's just so much easier than bringing books with me.
Yeah, I should check it out. It's sometimes there is weeks, but or a week waits, but you can just put a hold on it, and then it'll become available when it's ready.
That's amazing. So, yeah, I had no idea. Do you have a favorite like time of your day that you read? Because you mentioned that like, you'll do the audiobook.
Yeah.
I'm really not an audiobook girl. I've tried. I get the lack of different voices throws. I need that change in my ear.
Yeah, I will say it depends on the audiobook. I tried to do the Game of Thrones one. It's terrible.
Oh,
the author, like the one author tries to do different voices for all the characters.
There's so many characters.
And he forgets which accents he did for which characters, and they all like blend together. And he was like, he gave Tyrion a Scottish accent. And I was like, I don't like it. So it really depends on the audiobook, but there's a type of audiobook called graphic audio, which is a company, and they make it like a movie production where all of the actors and all the characters have different voice actors.
Did you see that they're doing that for Harry Potter? They're going to re-record all of the Harry Potters, and they've hired over 100 different actors to be the voices.
That's probably going to be like what they've done. They've done them. I heard them for the ACOTAR books because it's like different voices for the different characters, and then like sound effects and music. It's like a movie in your ears.
Yeah, I listened to one thriller book that way over Christmas, actually.
Did you like it?
I don't think it was like a graphic, what was it? What did you call it?
The brand is called Graphic Audio.
I don't think it was one of those, honestly. It was just like randomly on Spotify. But it was so much more fun. Like there were police sirens in the background or like car horns. And it made it much more engaging. Maybe it was.
Yeah, it probably was, just because I think about how that is the brand that does a bunch of series. But it's so funny because in ACOTAR, there's the spicy scenes and you're like, oh, I don't want to hear this person like moaning.
That's intimate.
It's very much like, oh, I feel like I should look away, but I'm listening to this. But I also feel like I should just...
You like don't want to make eye contact with anybody.
Yeah, you're like, oh my gosh, they know I'm listening to this.
That's so funny. Oh yeah, I think I'll definitely have to try a little bit more with audiobooks. Like I said, I saw that one, listened to that one that was a little bit different in terms of sound
effects. If you
effects,
look up like audiobooks, you can look for that specific brand.
Cool.
But in terms of like how I like to read outside of the audiobooks, I like a nighttime and an early morning. Like it's like my downtime when I, again, don't have my phone present. I don't have work distractions. And so I see it like a little treat for myself. I'm like, okay, like work is done, dinner's done, get in bed. It's like 8:30 p.m. and I'm like, okay, I'm going to read. And I'm going to read for a couple hours until I get usually until I get tired.
Yeah.
And then sometimes when I get up in the morning, if it's like early enough, I'll try to read before I have to like hop online for work.
Yeah, I feel like mine is more interspersed maybe throughout the day. Like I'm not really much of an evening reader because that usually is like mine and Nick's time together where we're like doing whatever. I have really bad habit, and this is a bad habit I've had since I was a child. My mom used to hate this. I tend to read while I eat. Like my book is propped up in front of me and I'm like slurping up noodles while I'm reading. My books if you ever borrow a book from me, there might be spaghetti sauce in the pages. I'm not gonna lie.
Just some kind of like food sauce on it.
My mom hated that. She would always be so upset that I was reading while I was eating. But like that is something that you can see there's books on my table right now. Like I always read while I eat. For me, it's more of like little pockets throughout the day. I had some time in between meetings, so I was like laying on the couch or reading, and then I was like, I'm almost done. So I brought my book to my desk with me and was like trying to get as close to my meeting time as possible while reading. Like
you're trying to finish the chapter while also like be on your next
aware.
Call.
Yeah. So books are just like more of a constant for me. I don't think I have like a dedicated like, oh, this is my reading time.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously when you travel, like that's all I do. I don't watch movies on planes. I just like read usually. But mine's, it's just interesting how we like have such different takes on it, but we end up reading about the same.
I mean, I would love to read it throughout the day, but I find that I would get too distracted because I have to just like stay focused on like this. Even on my downtime between meetings, there's usually work I have to do.
Totally.
So I'm trying to like stay up, but like come 7 p.m., I'm like, okay, the computer's closing, the email's off. I can like immerse myself. And I'll usually read a few like chapters each night.
Yeah.
And sometimes like I'll stay up past like, Adam usually will go to bed at 10:30. Last night it was 11. and I was not ready to finish reading. So I like have my little book light and I'm like sitting there like trying to make sure the light's not like going out into the bedroom, but trying to at least get a few more until I find a good break in the book. You know, sometimes it's like you're on the edge of your seat and you're just like, I gotta finish this, and the next chapter is like, oh, I gotta finish that one.
See, that's one of my worst habits. Nick and I have actually talked about, he's a very much like end of chapter person. He will like close the book.
But if it's on a cliffhanger,
I will put a book down in the middle of a sentence. It will be like, and then she said, and I'll be like, okay.
Okay, I do
Snap
that.
close, and then I like wander. Like I will put a book down. I don't believe in bookmarks. My books are just always open, or I memorize the page number. I'm psycho.
You're a fucking psycho. I have bookmarks.
I will lose them.
The only time I've ever stopped in the middle of a chapter was when I literally was falling asleep while reading, and I don't remember what I just read, so I'm just gonna stop, and then I restarted at the beginning of that chapter.
Absolutely not.
Because I didn't remember what I was reading.
I cannot tell you the last time I stopped at the end of a chapter. That is foreign to me.
Oh my God, you're a psychopath.
I'm a psycho. I honestly have serial killer tendencies when it comes to reading. I will stop. I kid you not. I will stop in the middle of a sentence and I will not even be fazed about it.
And for me, like the end of a chapter, I'm like the end of a chapter of one character's point of view.
Got to see the other point of view. But then you just keep going forever. Wow.
Oh,
wow.
We're so different.
As we like wrap up, what's the next book on your TBR, on your to be read list?
I mean, so I'm going to finish the Throne of Glass, the Throne of Glass series. And then, I might need to look at I have Goodreads. If anyone's on Goodreads, it's a good way for me to track what is on my TBR. Why don't you share so I can take a look at mine?
I don't know that mine is super exciting. I have two that are kind of on my TBR next. I'm debating between the two. One is a horror book that I read a really, we're gonna move past that. I could talk forever about books I just read. But I have a horror book that I read I have on my TBR, which is about a haunted villa in Italy, I'm honestly scared to read it. As somebody whose parents live in Italy, I'm like a little bit worried that I'll be too scared the next time I visit them. So that's one. And then the second one is called Julia. For people who have read 1984, Julia is one of the, I don't remember, Winston is the protagonist in 1984. He falls in love with Julia, blah, blah, blah. So this is 1984 from Julia's perspective. So a little bit of a flip there. So those are the two things that are next on my TBR.
So I have Wheel of Time.
Wheel of Time is on yours.
Starting that one is probably, and then the one that people keep telling me is a historical fiction called The Women.
Oh, I don't think I've heard of that one.
Yeah, that one's probably the next one, or A Little Life. Have you heard about that one?
I don't think I've heard of that one either.
I couldn't even tell you what it's about, but it's like on my TBR because so many people have been like, this is such a good book, you need to read it. So A Little Life, The Women, and Wheel of Time. And finishing the Red Rising series.
You have so many. That's a lot. I was trying to narrow mine down.
I know.
Yeah, well,
I can't.
You can't.
Mine for me is like when that book is available on Libby, I'm gonna read it because it's my library app. So.
That's fair. Mine are just whatever I have on my bookshelf. I could have talked about this for so much longer.
This is probably like episode 1 of like a series of books.
Yeah, this is another thing that we could do seasonally where we just pop in and talk about what we're reading, what we're up to, and what we're reading.
What we want to keep reading.
Yeah.
So, cheers, y'all.
Oh my
God, our song of the week.
Oh my God, Allegra's done. She does not want to be here anymore. I'm embarrassed. I was trying to keep things going.
Snackies.
Oh, well, we'll have snackies soon.
Okay.
What's your song of the week, Allegra?
Okay, so my song of the week.
You blasted through that.
I'm like, bye. See you later. No, my song of the week. I'm glad you halted me in
your tracks.
In my tracks. It's a song from the new Taylor Swift album, the Tortured Poets Department. It's a song called The Albatross, and I picked this song because when I listen to it, it reminds me of the character from Throne of Glass. And I figured that was a good tie-in because it's what I'm reading, it's what I'm listening to. Take a look, listen. If you've read Throne of Glass and you listen to this song, let me know what you think. It reminds me of Selena.
Okay, Albatross. I actually haven't even listened to the album at all. I don't know if people have been around for a while, they know what my Spotify Wrapped told me, and I have been on a journey this year to prove to Spotify that Taylor Swift is not my top artist, which is so, who am I to try and be like, Spotify, fuck you. Like, I'm one person, like, whatever, it doesn't matter. My song of the week is called, and if you are on TikTok and you're not Allie, you've definitely heard the song, A Bar Song by, or parentheses, Tipsy by Shabuzi. He performed at Stagecoach, what was that, 2 weeks ago now? And it's a good song. I know Shabuzi was also on the Cowboy Carter album. I have not listened to Cowboy Carter yet. No, he was on it. And he has been on the top 100 of the country album or country charts for the past few weeks, which is just a really cool thing. Like first there was Beyonce and then another Black artist was top of the country charts. So
A Bar Song.
That is my song of the week. Now, Allie, if you're ready to go. All right, bye y'all. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.
Cheers.